Today on the Winning with Shopify podcast.
When you move to Texas, first thing you do is you buy a ranch. As we learned, the business evolved. We went from just selling fluff to selling yarn. I never thought we'd have 19 styles of sock, but you do.
Yeah. How many sunglasses do I have to sell compared to one marketing contract? And it was like, let's get a marketing contract, a lot less work.
We actually switched to Shopify on a Black Friday in 2013, 2012.
On Black Friday itself.
Black Friday, while we were set up at a holiday market in Washington, D.C.
Right. Do you ever find that in your warehouse you have dead stock? You can't sell it, no one wants to buy it, and you can't get a refund on it. Or alternatively, you're missing inventory in your warehouse that you need. You've got sales coming in and you're low on stock and you haven't ordered more stock in time. All these things hit profit, and I've been there. I've run my own Shopify store and had exactly that problem. But we've partnered it up with Inventory Planner, who have the most incredible app to help you manage that and forecast exactly what products, what SKUs, even down to what color of product you need to order in advance to make sure stock levels remain consistent throughout. They're also running a 7-day boot camp. And if you want to go and sign up to that, it's 7 emails over 7 days. And it takes the same amount of time as your morning coffee. And in 7 days, like me, you can become an inventory management pro. Both links are in the description. Enjoy. So Ron, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm doing great, sir. Thank you for having me on.
Well, it's a pleasure to have you here, Ron. And it looks a little bit warmer where you are as well. You've just told me before we hit record you're in Texas. I'm currently in freezing cold London and it's raining right now. So we're, hopefully you're enjoying the weather a little bit more than I am. But Ron, let anyone that's never seen your face before, heard of you, or aware of what your business does, tell us a bit about your background. Tell us a bit about the business. What do you guys sell and how did you get into this in the 80s?
Okay, well, we make one of the more unusual products out there. We do stuff with American bison fiber. My family moved to Texas in the mid 80s. And when you move to Texas, first thing you do is you buy a ranch. So we did that, and lots of funny stories later. The Fort Worth Nature Center was selling off 2 of their bison. We have already gone through miniature horses and pheasants and quail and all sorts of other animals. And my dad decided to buy a pair of bison. So that started the journey. We were not farm people. We did not come from an agricultural background. But when you're responsible for something like that, you learn really quickly. And then you get involved, you find friends. And Dad helped found the Texas Bison Association, and early John joined the National Bison Association. And we've been raising them now for almost 50 years. But the journey really started with the business when we started picking up the fluff around the yard, because the bison grow this hair out in the winter and then shed it out in the spring. And you pick up this really soft buffalo fluff out in the pasture, and you know that it's beautiful. You understand that it's got some value. And at the time, that the Bison Association was trying to find a way to help ranchers make a little bit more money per animal. Raising bison at that point was totally not profitable. People did it for the passion of the animal and to try and help the comeback. So you look at all the different parts that don't have a commercial value, and the hair, this fluff stuff here, didn't. And we'd pick it up, and Dad put it in a box in the barn and ended up collecting a couple of pounds of it. Well, he put it on eBay. And a lady in Boston and a lady in Colorado started bidding against each other on this 3-pound box of nasty, dirty buffalo hair. And it ended up selling for over $400.
Wow.
Yeah, that was exactly what we said too.
Good margin for something you were throwing in the bin.
Right. So you don't know what it is. And so that kind of started the journey. And that was very early on in late 90s. And so we started looking at different methods of collecting it, putting out street sweeper brushes on ranches and letting the bison comb themselves off. And then it kind of got down to what these animals are processed for meat, so we might as well shear the hides. And that's really when we became able to do some commercial production. Because with the fiber, when you've got 5 pounds of it, you can't go make stuff. You need 1,000 pounds to actually go to a mill and say, hey, let's turn this into yarn, let's turn this into product. But when we started originally, it was just collecting the fluff, paying the ranchers, and selling the fluff to hand spinners. Our business really evolved organically. My wife and I both started attending sheep and wool festivals and learning how to sit at a spinning wheel and make yarn. Then we learned how to knit and weave and dye and do all the different construction things. So as we learned, the business evolved. We went from just selling fluff to selling yarn. And then we learned how to dye the yarn. And then we learned more about the properties of the fiber. Bison fiber is one of the most insulating fibers anywhere. These animals are comfortable at temperatures down past -80 Fahrenheit. So they're well evolved for cold. They don't have a lot of this fluff. If you shear a whole bison, you're going to get less than a pound. So there's not much of it available, but it's really nice. It's softer than cashmere. It's very durable. It's a solid, smooth protein. It doesn't shrink or felt, and it just is comfortable. So our journey is just trying to find the best use of it, and that's been a 20-year journey now.
Yeah, yeah. And I think it's amazing because so there's a company called Portland Leather Goods we've had on the show before as well, and they, minus the ranch, they've got a very similar story to you. We've actually had Nick on a couple of times, the CMO, and he talks a lot about how that they were just buying basically cow hides and to make leather. They were buying this leather so cheap because the meat industry is just giving the stuff away because they need to pay to get rid of it in the first place. And then started making products. It's a really similar story. And obviously, you guys are running a Shopify store now and actually selling products directly. So we'll talk about that in a sec. But I want to ask a slightly left field question, if I can. You mentioned about buying the ranch and some of the early lessons about bison. And I'm always interested to hear, like, it's great you talk about the products and the business, and we'll talk more about that as we go through. And that's kind of what everybody who's tuning in right now is expecting to hear. I'd love to hear, what were some of the early lessons with the bison themselves? Because not everybody who's running a Shopify store tuning in has live animals to deal with as well as products. Like, it must have been a handful to kind of deal with the animals themselves as much as the products that started to evolve out of what you were doing.
Well, yes, it did, and to this day, my wife and I have a small ranch here. We actually raise longhorns, pigs, chickens, and such. I don't quite have the land for bison. I don't have the quantity of land for bison here, but it's a learning curve because the one thing you can't do when you're raising animals, you can't bullshit them. They don't. You can't lie to them. They will prove you wrong very quickly. So when you do something, whether it's
Yeah.
fencing or feeding or what have you, it has to be real. And in order to have healthy animals, you have to keep the land healthy, and the bison do a very good job of keeping the land healthy. But there are definitely responsibilities, especially things like fencing, um, making sure that they don't go wander and meet your neighbors, because that's the one thing that every bison rancher's always had is that call, come get your animal. That's not a good thing. But yeah, it teaches you responsibility. It teaches you consistency, because chores have to be done daily. There's no exceptions. If it's raining cold, you were talking about cold. We're going to hit like 22 Fahrenheit today, which is going to get fairly chilly. Rare, but it happens. But again, I have to make sure that the animals have feed and water, and everybody's got shelter and things like that. So that sort of it just kind of teaches you a little bit of discipline, and that has really
Yeah.
helped in our journey.
Yeah, and I find it amazing, how hands on you've been with the raw material of this actually comes from the animal, and you've got the animal on your land. I think certainly as a as a culture in the West now, we're so used to, like, you walk into a KFC and you order chicken and that's it. Like, actually seeing a chicken and being close to the animals themselves, it's so distant from where we are because of mass production, supply chains, and everything else these days. So it must have helped you guys, I'm sure, in the journey. Where are you guys at today? Like, tell us what's going on today. Like, why are you on a Shopify podcast right now? Like, what products are you selling? What's the store called? Like, how is it run into today's conversation?
Well, our company's called the Buffalo Wool Company. My wife and I started this in 2011, sort of a spin-off of the original project with Dad. Um, about in 2019, my wife and I bought our first ranch. We'd been spent 10 years out on the road at every outdoor show and festival, selling our wares, mostly socks and gloves and hats and things. Um, we actually switched to Shopify on a Black Friday in 2013, 2012.
On Black Friday itself.
Black Friday, while we were set up at a holiday market in Washington D.C.
Right.
Yeah,
Okay.
and we'd had problems with our prior web platform, found Shopify, and oh my gosh, it was a life changer. We still did a lot of events up until COVID hit. When all those shut down, I started writing a newsletter, and our sales doubled like almost overnight. Our web sales just shot through the roof. Right now, it's really difficult to leave our little ranch. Again, we have cattle and chickens and pigs and other various creatures, bees and things running around. So we have to maintain that, and that still keeps us disciplined. But my granddaughter, my grandson, my sister-in-law, we all work out of here, out of the ranch. Everybody helps in different areas. We turned our little horse barn into a warehouse, and we ship 200 to 300 packages a day out of here.
Wow.
Um,
Wow. Which is amazing. And I think you're not the first people we've spoken to about kind of moving to Shopify and it being a breath of fresh air, right the way up to like and for anybody listening as well, it would have happened actually, but I had a quick chat on all our social channels live with the ex CMO of Gymshark. And they went through a very similar I don't know how different the scales are with them and you guys, but similar story of like our website just wasn't working. And we moved to Shopify and it's like 100% uptime, completely robust, nothing broke on it. It's easier for people to shop. It has its limitations. I've even this same week we're recording this, I've hit probably about 30 or 40 limitations myself on the Winning with Shopify store, trying to change a few bits and pieces around. But it gives you that robustness, and it's fascinating to hear about how you guys kind of evolved almost out of nowhere, as you say, to like we just launched Shopify. It's simple, and as much as you guys must have been in the sort of farming space and running a ranch, and as you say, like looking after live animals, you're at a show at this moment, still running a website because it makes it simple enough. But the newsletter sounds incredible. Like, how did you get people to sign up and subscribe to your newsletter, and what were you talking about in it that had that impact on the sales?
well, again, we've been out around and meeting people. I mean, we've met a lot of our customers face to face over the years, especially these events we've done for 10 or 12 years. And I'm not quite sure why people signed up, but the newsletter itself, it's not salesy. I don't use it. Essentially, to even market our products. I use it more to tell the stories of what's going on in the bison industries, whether it's conservation herds in Illinois or a ranch that's working in Wyoming. I just try and share stories of friends that are having successes and a little bit of our crazy around here. I like making and building stuff. That's sort of my hobby. So sharing a little transparency into our life and the lives of our friends. And it went from, I don't know, 5,000 subscribers to almost 100,000 pretty quickly.
Wow.
Um,
And I find it so amazing though the fact that you weren't, which is, I mean, I don't take this anyone as like this is the wrong approach, but so many brands I subscribe to, work with, or even just monitor, so many of them they're just pushing products constantly, and there's definitely a space for that. But what you've done is built a community and then introduce the product to the community, as opposed to just trying to push a product or build a community to sell a product. It seems like such a better way of doing things, and so many brands we've had on here have spoken about that community aspect, even though a lot of that conversation's one way, they're reading your content and that's it. But there is that community of people that they must feel connected because you're writing to them as a group.
I think you're correct, and there are times that I will push products when we have things that we need to sell or what have you. But for the most part, I just want to engage. I personally want to learn, and the feedback I get and the responses I get from the stories that we share, and people send us stories, and it's been very very beneficial to us personally, um, because I never admit to being an expert on anything whatsoever, but I have friends who know a lot of stuff, and
Yeah.
that's been the journey, is just trying to put all the pieces of the different puzzles together. And yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
people come together as very much as a community and want to support the work that we're doing, and then in return, because we've had some success, we're able to put more back into the community ourselves.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's a really good way of doing it. And obviously you mentioned socks. Like you guys have more products than that now, don't you? Things have evolved into other areas. Tell us about your product range today. Like how big's the product range? What other stuff do you guys sell? Like how broad has it become?
It has grown considerably. We started originally with fingerless gloves for fly fishing, and that's a funny story in itself. We were selling yarn to a little shop in Tennessee, and she started her husband had a fly fishing shop on the other side of the store. They started knitting fingerless gloves for fly fishermen out of bison yarn, and they just proved to be so warm, wicking, and working. She just started selling yarn like crazy. So we started making gloves. Well, it's it's just evolved. The fiber is designed to keep a large mammal warm. So we look at the things that make sense: the extremities, head, hands, and feet. There's not enough fiber available really to make like bodysuits for anybody. So doing things like heads, like hand gloves, hats, and socks seem to work. We're now up to, I don't know, like 1,200 SKUs. I never thought we'd have 19 styles of sock, but we do.
Yeah.
Different activities, different types of footwear. There's lots of different needs. And we do take our customer feedback very seriously because a lot of these people are professionals out doing really crazy things and need more protection than average gear gives you.
Yeah, yeah. Yep. And I mean, segueing on to another thing I want to talk about specifically is, a lovely friend Neil, who was on the podcast recently from Judge Me, introduced us to yourself and said, you got to get Ron on. He's got such a cool story. And as I can see, um, and obviously, like you mentioned about, people using these products in some fairly extreme conditions. It must be so damaging if you just got one bad review. Like, just, I mean, obviously, everyone can handle one or two, but you get that horrible review saying these are the only gloves I took on a trip to do this, this, and this, and it all went wrong. Like, my hands were freezing the whole time. I couldn't operate the fishing rods that I was there to. So you guys must have to work so hard to make the product really good, so you get those reviews. But talking about the review strategy, like, how important is it to get that feedback? What do you learn from it? Like, how does it affect? Do you think sales, conversion, and that sort of thing as well through through the review platform?
Oh, it absolutely is crucial. And one of the things that we believe in, because this is an expensive product and it's, again, not something that everybody needs, I think the more information the consumer can have, the more is better. We believe in 100% transparency in reviews. We don't edit, cherry pick, delete reviews or anything like that, um, because people need to know what it's going to do. And it's funny. Some people learn from bad reviews, and those can be actually beneficial if it shows you that this isn't right or that maybe this is what you want. So again, we leave them all. We don't edit. We very seldom even comment on them. I don't know, 90 something percent are 5-star, and that's good because the stuff we're working with a product that really does work, and that helps.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Yeah, I think as well, a lot of brands, and certainly a lot of brands that I talk to, they sometimes feel like they're working in a bit of a vacuum. It's like we're making this stuff, people are buying it, and then what? Like we don't know if they like it, what they use it for. And I think reviews are obviously part of a bigger, wider picture of finding out what are our products for, why do people need them, and like I mean, you've mentioned several use cases, like the guys fishing. That's such a good example, I think, of just like a very simple yet effective use case for your product that had you not walked into that shop or had that relationship, which I know you knew the shop owners, but they're clearly making a product for customers. So you've got quite a close hands-on actually relationship with potential customers here that are buying the product. So you've actually got a very close connection to customers. And certainly a lot of brands, and I used to run a Shopify store myself doing this, and I've said to and people have been emailing me being like, send me a link to the store and so it doesn't exist. I sold bamboo sunglasses. I had no connection to the customers. It was just, let's get some, I'm really good at marketing. Let's get some products. I can market them. And we sold loads of them and it was fun. We didn't make loads of money, but but my business partner Ben and I were both running our agencies at the time as well, and it was always like, how many sunglasses do I have to sell compared to one marketing contract? And it was like, let's get a marketing contract, a lot less work. But it was fun to see how it was running. But we were doing the opposite of what you were doing, Ron. And I would say we were doing it wrong and you were doing it right, in the sense of you've got really close connection to customers. You're solving a need. You're even making something out of a waste product. What used to be a waste product is now a super valuable product. Whereas we were just sort of sitting in this vacuum, not really communicating with customers. And let's face it, most people are buying our products just to kind of look cool. They had UV protection, but they weren't like, prescription sunglasses or anything extra special. It didn't add anything other sunglasses didn't. But I think it's really important, for businesses like yours. And I'd love to hear a bit more about how you've evolved this part of the brand to say, actually, we stand for something. We have a purpose. We have a story. How do you bring that across on the website, in your communications with customers?
well, Yeah, I think actions really speak louder than just saying it. My wife and I serve as a director of the National Bison Association now, and my wife is on the board of the National Buffalo Foundation and the Center for Excellence for Bison Studies. We try and give our time, because that's the most valuable thing there is, to actually helping the industry, and I do think that adds a lot of value. From a product standpoint, again, we used to do a lot of things around. One of the only ones that we events that we've kept is we go up and vend at the Alaska State Fair every year. It's a really, I figure if you're selling cold weather gear, there's no better place, no better testing ground.
Go to Alaska.
Go to Alaska, right?
Absolutely.
If you're going to make something that's supposed to keep you warm in extreme climates, you go up there. And so we've been doing that now 15 years. We actually have a little building on the fairgrounds, and we've really gotten involved with the mushing community, the dog sledding teams, because anybody who's out there for 8 9 days at -60 Fahrenheit running dogs, for 12 hours a day, they need good quality gear, and if our stuff can hold up for that, it can pretty much handle your hunting trip. So that's been really good, and the feedback we've gotten out of that has been great. The commercial fishermen up there, the guys that are deadliest catch type style ice road truckers, um, and those people need something serious. Our stuff is not fashion forward. It's not it's not something people buy for a status symbol. They buy it for utility, and again, so it's got to work, and that's bottom line. So we do keep believing in hardcore testing. We encourage customer feedback. We do contests every year to have people show us what they're out doing. Whether I in the last 5 years, I've had 15 people summit Kilimanjaro. I mean, that's
Wow.
kind of cool. So we get to live
Yeah.
vicariously through some of these adventures.
That's amazing. Even the Kilimanjaro example, I was thinking like, oh, you could use some of this stuff like the ice. Like, I mean, I've watched Ice Road Truckers. It's such a good show. Like, just the weirdest niche you would never think about until you go on TV. And go, what? These guys are driving 18 wheelers on ice? Like, what the heck? And the adventures are brilliant. But I mean, even Kilimanjaro. Every time somebody reaches the top of that, you've got an email story. Our partners at Seguno have released a brand new app for Shopify, and it's called Shopify Connect for Canva. You can essentially look at all of your product images from Shopify directly in Canva and export them straight back. This can save you a lot of time. If you want to find out a bit more about this or go and find the app yourself, you can go to seguno.com/Canva. Enjoy. And you would not believe the amount of brands we work with and talk to and listen to the show who are every day just sitting in like a white walled office somewhere in the city going, I need a story. Like, I need to send something out. What are we going to write? And I just think the way you guys are engaging with customers, I mean, was it 8 times a year or eight people now have reached Kilimanjaro's summit, you said? Or
Yeah, 8 different expeditions, and they're all wearing our stuff. Our stuff is sold on there's a ship that goes down to Antarctica called Polar Expeditions, and that's what the crew and everybody on the boat wears. Um,
wow. Which
so
again, it's all such good stories, and every brand must have stories like that. It doesn't have to be extreme cold like your particular product, but I just find brands need to just get out there, get out there and see what people are using it for. It's brilliant.
you're absolutely correct, and my wife is a wildlife photographer, so she likes to go to crazy places and do silly things. The next two up is we're going to Norway to go swim with the orcas, and then
Yeah,
she's
nice.
yeah, and then we're going to go do a polar bear expedition here soon. We're actually going up next week for the Iditarod, because we do that all the time. And she's booked us a 150-mile dog sled trip. We have found that it's a lot more fun to go out and do these things ourselves, because then I can talk to a customer and say, yeah, when I was outside Nome on the sled, this is what I experienced. It's a lot cheaper to do that than to pay a model and have a photo shoot.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. I went to an Audi garage the other day, like as in the car manufacturer Audi, to have my car serviced. And I suddenly noticed, I was like, every time I come here, whether it's a service rep, a sales rep, the receptionist, everyone's talking to me about their Audi. And I was like, This is really good, actually. I wonder how many other brands make sure all their staff are driving the same car, as you say, using the product in the same way customers would to give the customer that advice. Because as you say, it's not a product everybody needs, and it's not the cheapest. It's not the, you don't sort of go, oh, I need bison wool for this. It's like, that it's something you might need to go and discover. And so are people talking and saying like, the ship's crew, we all wear these. If you're cold, like we sell them in the shop, or actually next time you go on one of these freezing cold cruises. I'm interested though, dog sledding 150 miles. How long does that take? How long's that adventure?
It's going to be a 2 day trip. Yeah,
2 days. So 75 miles a day.
right. And then we'll camp and go on. I'm looking forward to it. I've done some short distance sledding, never anything like this. But we like doing fun stuff and being
Yeah.
comfortable while you do it.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it's amazing. And I guess like going back to the point about not every customer or not everybody is right for this, not every single person will be a customer for you. How do you go about targeting? Like how do you go about doing kind of your target research to then do marketing and get your imagery right, your the tone of voice, the brand approach. How do you get that right just to target your specific niche so that it's not a product for everybody? You keep almost that kind of exclusive element to it.
Well, you're making a big assumption that I get anything right. Okay.
I love that.
Truth, Truthfully, our customers target themselves. We put out the information out there. We've had some very good exposure, um, and the communities that are out doing these things. You go to the forums that people are talking about, extreme climbing and things like that. We get mentioned. Um, as far as targeting, again, I don't. I just wanted to educate and inform and show people what's available, and then be able to back it up with evidence, with some studies, and then a lot of anecdotal experience. So I don't go out necessarily prospecting for customers. We did do a fairly big thing here yesterday, actually, with the Babylon Bee, and oh my God, that brought a lot of traffic.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
but
I know
we're
the
willing.
Babylon Bee very well. I go to a church here in the UK, and I know their stories. They're absolutely hilarious. So yeah,
Oh,
Babylon
they
Bee are
just
great.
did an amazing job. They did a little parody story on us and things, but
Nice. Yeah,
they've been
yeah.
wonderful. So I do some marketing. I quit doing pay per click type advertising 5 or 6 years ago. I just didn't really want to give more money to Meta and Google. And so what we started doing instead is sponsoring content creators. We work with a number of different podcasters. Most recently, the Dale Stark Show. He's an A10 pilot who's interviewing pilots, and just an amazing guy who's become a rancher up in the Pacific Northwest. We sponsor a guy named Thomas Riley who's doing an American Southwest podcast. So I figure people that are interested in these kind of stories and these kind of adventures, they're the people who might be a good target for us. So actually putting money towards people actually creating something and then letting them give a little bit of education and information, that seems to be most effective for us. And I feel good being
Yeah, yeah.
able to help these guys.
Hmm. I know you joke about like the assumption that you do anything right. I think what you've just described is one of the best marketing campaigns I think your business could possibly have. I've been working in this space for 18 years, and actually, if I put it in kind of marketing agency lingo, I would say you clearly know your target market. You know who uses your product. You know where they are. You know where they hang out. You know how to reach them, which, as you say, is not pay per click. If someone's looking for a product on pay per click, the products that sell really well on pay per click is someone who's been working in pay per click for 18 years. A lot of it is about like the competitiveness of the product. You don't need any of that because you've got a limited supply of what you can produce anyway, and you know exactly who your user groups are. So influencers makes a lot of sense, and it's just fascinating hearing the way you describe it. Of rather than going, so we came up with an influencer strategy, we reached out to them, we offered them some cash, they took the cash, we drove some users to site. It's exactly the same exercise that could be described like that, but actually the way you've done it, which I think is probably a more ethical and more fun way of doing it, is we really want to help these guys out. Like say we concept, how can we help you out? I imagine is one of your, we love the show. how could we help you out with our product? And it starts a conversation, which means you probably do cut through all of the, and we get them for our podcast all the time. I probably get 10 emails a day saying like, we've got the best guest ever. It's like, this guy runs a marketing agency that does SEO. We want to bring them on. And I'm like, well, listen to one episode of the show and you'll hear that I run an SEO agency. And this is my stage. So absolutely not. That this is, I think it's fascinating how you're almost definitely cutting through that. So I guess one question is, with these influencers, do you organically just come across them and go, hey, your wife and yourself just say, hey, we should reach out to these guys and have a chat? Or do you actively go looking for them, or is it a bit of both?
And it is a bit of both. I don't actively go searching for them. Usually they're people that we find and watch their content. There's a great one, Charlie Rankin, Yanasa TV. We started watching his videos on defending the right to farm. And he's just a brilliant filmmaker. So the way I introduce myself is I say, hi, can I send you some socks? And that usually starts the conversation, because once they've experienced what we do, then they're curious. And next thing you know, we're talking. I only want to work with friends. I'm not looking to have, some nameless agency. So long before we've done any sponsorships or anything like that, we've sat down, we've usually had a meal, we've done things and actually become friends. And that's gone a long ways. So with the Anasa TV thing, we got to talking. He's fascinated by bison. Well, we made a movie. And he's gone around to 70 different ranches around the US, shot 6,000 hours of footage. And we're now marketing this movie on the modern resurgence of bison.
Yeah. Which completely trumps anything I could put in a small text advert on Google. Let me make that clear. The movie sounds amazing, and we also had talking of kind of film and TV, we had I completely forgot their name now. BattleBox, that's it. We had BattleBox on with their CEO John, and they've obviously got a series on Netflix, as much as them being their own store. And I just thought, what a way to cut against your competitors. Like, I sometimes it's great to hear your story about making the film, and that's really powerful. I also just love having that kind of afterthought of going, imagine all of your competitors waking up in the morning going, he's done a film now. Like, how are we going to catch up with this guy? Like, he's making movies. Or like BattleBox, they've launched a Netflix series. Or
Right.
I watched, I can't remember the name of it now. There's a really good series that I think it's Netflix, where they put a group of 16 survivors in Alaska, and they have to survive. They have to split themselves into like 4 teams, and that's it. They have no contact outside of the 16 of them in the different teams. Like, planes just drop stuff with a note on it saying like, use this stuff, make a raft, get over there. And you're like, winter's closing in here and we still haven't made a fire. And it's like, but the amount of like shows like that have like incredibly cool product placements that brands have gone. And I think this is a real key in marketing, and certainly a lot of the biggest companies over history have done this, is where you go so far over and above that actually competitors like, we just need to find a different way of battling this thing now. Like, we can't, we can't outspend them on Google advertising. We can't make a film. Like, none of this is going to work. We're going to have to make our product unique in a different way, or target a new market or something, which actually is a really healthy thing for any business to go through anyway. But I love the fact you guys have 6,000 hours of footage and are making a film out of it. Like, it just sounds brilliant. Like, it's so much more exciting than than certainly looking at some of the spreadsheets that I have on my computer.
Well, I'll send you some links. I think you'll enjoy
Yeah,
it.
please do.
And it's funny
Yeah,
you
yeah,
mentioned
do.
the show stuff. Um, a couple of years ago, somebody sent me a screenshot from a TV show called Alone, where they go and drop the competitors out and basically stay 30 days out in the middle of nowhere alone. A guy named Clay Hayes had our socks hanging up in his little bivouac, and you could see the BWC logo on them. And of course, I instantly became a fan of Clay and started learning his modern bow making. But we've been on that show now, I think 7 or 8 times, just not our product placement, just the
Yeah.
competitors
So you've had
randomly
no
deciding to
connection to
take our
them.
gear. No,
Wow.
and then we've
Wow.
made friends with there's a guy named Terry Burns. Terry works for the USGA, the U.S. Geological Society, and he lives off grid in Alaska in his pickup truck all year. Well, Terry was on the show. He has a pair of our socks, That is the only pair of socks he owns, which living off grid in Alaska, I would think he might.
Wow.
But we met him.
Yeah.
I said, "Can I give you another pair of socks?" He's like, "No, I'm good. I've got one." It's like, okay, that's a lot of faith in a product.
Yeah, yeah. I love that.
And
I
he
mean,
said,
they're literally using your products to survive. Like, it literally is life and death situation. If this product doesn't help me,
"Yeah."
I'm gonna freeze to death. I love that. It's yeah, it's certainly unique. So I'm gonna check out the series alone. Yeah, it sounds absolutely amazing. And Ron, send us the links. And for everyone listening, we'll put the links in the description if you want to check out some of these things as well. I mean, if you're not the owner of the business, like it's a tough conversation, it's a tough sell up to your boss to go, we need to make a movie. But I think there's loads to learn from taking what is a very amazing and unique approach to marketing, Ron, that you guys are taking. Yeah, and you don't even see it as marketing. That's what I love even more. Is like you don't even see it as a marketing campaign in the same way that I would or most of our listeners. What's coming up then? Like, what's next? Like, where are you guys going? What's on the horizon? You've obviously got a few trips coming up with polar bears and and swimming with orcas. I mean, good luck. I've seen orcas in the wild from the safety of a boat. They're terrifying. Um, what's coming up for the business? Like, what are some of the things you guys are wanting to achieve this year, the next few years?
Well, one of the bigger difficulties we manufacture here in the United States. We've lost two of our textile mills in the last 2 years. Two of the spinning mills. We've we're working with another one right now that's doing just an absolutely beautiful job. But construction of stuff is difficult. We did get recently approached by a larger weaving mill that makes some really nice blankets, and they would like to make blankets for us. So that's a fairly massive one on the horizon. And then we can also do more things with woven fabric, ponchos and vests and things like that. We've also recently developed a very nice batting fiber. It's a lofty, spongy batting for like puppy vests and sleeping bags and things like that. But it's just the two of us. It's me and my wife. So I've only got so much bandwidth. The business is constantly busy. And then I've got, animals. So we only have so much we can do. There's certain things that we won't outsource. Customer service. When a customer wants to call, I want them to be able to talk to me or her. And that takes a lot of time. But not being on the road and not driving 14 hours a day to an event in Chicago or what have you, that's given us a lot more time to get stuff done. So we're we have several new products and projects on the horizon. We we do some military fulfillment for the U.S. military, and that's picking up. So that's also takes a lot of time. I looked up yesterday, and we were out of our regular beanies, which we just got a load in 2 weeks ago. So I pick up a phone, call a supplier. He's knitting them this morning. This was
Good, good.
last night at 7 o'clock. I called Mike Carrot at the knitting mill, and he'll have product to us by the end of the week. So we do have a brilliant supply chain, wonderful partners who, again, I can drive 30 minutes or an hour and go see some of them, and that's really a big deal for us is being able to shake the hands of the people, pay a living wage, and know that we're not working off slave labor in China and things like that.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And there's been an interesting change in the UK, which I won't talk about because our content recently keeps getting flagged as political, and then it won't go out on certain channels. So I won't mention it. But if you want to email me, I'll go full on email. I'll tell you exactly what I think of all the governments around the world at the moment. But it sounds like an amazing adventure. But I love the fact you guys are staying quite humble and saying, do you know what? We need to just look around the room actually and go, what bandwidth do we have here? And I think that it's interesting to hear the changes you've made about not being on the road, as you say, to shows. And now we've got Shopify and we sell direct online. It's like, okay, that means we can sell to a wider pool of people because of delivery and we've got more time. But I love the fact that also you're not looking at this going like, let's just get as much cash as we can and get out and retire. I'm sure you have a business plan and other things like all sensible companies, but equally, it's still answering the phone to customers and saying like, like if you want to chat, you're going to chat to me. And I love your approach of sitting over dinner with people. We certainly are quite a lot of the partners I work with and some of our clients. It's 5, 10, 20-year relationships almost that we're building here, and it's so much better. Like if somebody phones up and says, "Can I have your advice on something, or can I ask for a favor?" The answer is like, "Yeah, of course. I've known you for years." Like if someone you've just met, you're like, "Oh, where's this going?" Like but I think having those relationships is so important. But supply chain issues, it's a never-ending story for e-commerce businesses. I'm sure it's not your first, and it won't be your last. But yeah, the more you can see down the road, quite often is the powerful position to go. We see what's happening here. We're okay today because we made provisions for this. We've got other suppliers. We've got other mills that can create stuff for us. But I mean, it sounds like an amazing adventure. I mean, all the best of luck with it, Ron, and we'll hopefully get you back on in a year or two. And I've been saying a lot of guests recently. We've got a few more guests coming back after a year or two in the next few weeks. But yeah, amazing adventure. I wish you all the best, Ron. And I appreciate your time today for answering questions. It's awesome to hear, and I will certainly be watching from the wings. Absolutely.
Thank you very much, brother. We appreciate this. This kind of
Cool.
exposure definitely helps.
Yeah, absolutely. So, guys, if you've enjoyed today's conversation, my last question for you, Ron, is how can people reach out to you? What's the web address? What are your social handles? How can people connect in with you?
Okay, well, the website is thebuffalowoolco.com, and you can find me on X at Buffalo Ron or on Facebook at the Buffalo Woolco. And we're available pretty much anytime. Our phone numbers are out there. My cell phone's out there. Give us a shout.
Amazing.
We love
It's a
talking.
brave thing to put your cell phone number out. That is
Well,
brave. I
my
respect
home
that.
address is on Google Maps. It's not like we can
True.
hide.
True. And also, if someone wants to come and see you, it's a long drive wherever they've come from. You guys you're certainly not in the middle of a massive city. So yeah, but look, really
No.
appreciate your time. Thank you so much for joining us, Ron. And for everybody listening at home, absolute pleasure to have you tuning in. Feel free to reach out to us. Like I would have said in the intro as well, check out the Growth Hub. It's a free community for brands like Ron and all of you guys listening. Come chat. We're running free events. We've got some amazing guests coming up. And if you haven't already, I did talk to the ex-CMO of Gymshark live on all our social channels a couple of weeks ago. So yeah, definitely check out what I spoke to Richard about. Thanks for tuning in. Back again next Friday. Do you ever find that in your warehouse you have dead stock? You can't sell it, no one wants to buy it, and you can't get a refund on it? Or alternatively, you're missing inventory in your warehouse that you need. You've got sales coming in and you're low on stock and you haven't ordered more stock in time. All these things hit profit, and I've been there. I've run my own Shopify store and had exactly that problem. But we've partnered it up with Inventory Planner, who have the most incredible app to help you manage that and forecast exactly what products, what SKUs, even down to what color of product you need to order in advance to make sure stock levels remain consistent throughout. They're also running a 7-day boot camp. And if you want to go and sign up to that, it's 7 emails over 7 days. And it takes the same amount of time as your morning coffee. And in 7 days, like me, you can become an inventory management pro. Both links are in the description. Enjoy.